Hola a todas y a todos. Hola, David, ¿cómo estás? But before you answer my question, estoy muy feliz de estar aquí, como siempre. I'm very happy to be here, as always. Um, el tiempo está muy bueno aquí en Berlín. I'm broadcasting from Berlin, where the weather is really nice. It's hot, hace calor. And it's a bit late here. It's 7 p.m. in Germany. So, David, bienvenido. Welcome. How are you?
Gracias, David. I am doing well. Estoy bien. It's good to be back with you this week for another one of our installments of our weekly Spanish Q&A Ask Me Anything Facebook Live sessions. Hace buen tiempo aquí. There's good weather here. Necesito aprovecharlo. I need to take advantage of it. So I hope to get outside at some point today. But David, what's going on in your world? ¿Cómo van tus proyectos de trabajo? How are your work projects going?
Buena pregunta. Good question. Tengo muchos proyectos. I'm having right now many projects on my plate. Tengo que terminarlos esta semana. I have to finish them this week. I'm in a rush right now. Time is pressing a little bit as well. Pero los voy a dejar para mañana. Los paso para mañana. Today I'm not working anymore. I'm postponing them for tomorrow. So I keep working on them tomorrow, promised. How about you?
Todo va bien. Tengo pocos proyectos, pero estoy pensando en qué debo hacer para las próximas semanas. I'm thinking of what I need to be doing for the next couple weeks, even though this week is a little bit light. But for now, my biggest work project is being here with all of our amazing viewers for this weekly broadcast. So let's go ahead and get started, if that sounds good to you, David.
That sounds great. So last week we had a very interesting topic. It was a difficult one, I think, but we'll get a deeper view today on that topic again. But maybe we should get started with homework that you had for today. So we learned how to use the object pronouns when they are all together, the direct and indirect object pronouns. And we had this sentence at the end, which is a nuestros hijos les voy a comprar un coche. So if you need more context, we are gonna buy our sons a car. A nuestros hijos les voy a comprar un coche. And then someone answers or asks, oh, ¿cuándo vas a comprar? So we see here some answers. This is great. We all know how it works.
Yeah, we talked last week about some tricky rules that you have to remember when you have object pronouns, especially two object pronouns right next to each other, and especially object pronouns that begin with the same sound. So let's see how much you remembered. It looks like most everyone's getting the right answer, which is very encouraging. So David, what is the correct answer in this case?
Well, the correct answer, as Dominica says, is the second one, the second option, se lo. So if we go back to the sentence, and I think everyone had it right. And if not, let me tell you why. So the second option is the right one, se lo vas a comprar. Because we start here with the direct object pronoun lo, which refers to un coche. So a car is a masculine noun in Spanish, and that's why we use lo. And then we have a nuestros hijos les, which is the indirect object pronoun. So we are gonna buy them a car, them. So they are the recipients here, and yes, we have les, and here double, because this is something that we do in Spanish. We try to double the indirect object by using the pronoun les in this case. So, nuestros hijos first and les second are the same. So, but if we use les, lo in the sentence, that would sound a little bit, I don't know, it's difficult to say that this is in Spanish. So that's why we say se instead of les and le when the next word is an object pronoun that is lo, la, los, or las. So if we stick with that rule, I think it's easy. Other than that, we have also the other indirect pronouns and direct pronouns that can be placed in the sentence without major changes. So, David, I suggest you and everyone to stay here with us because today we are going to see these same pronouns and we are going to learn how to use them in a sentence because it's not only about what we need to say, but also how we can use them in a sentence. So here we have the question, ¿Cuándo se lo vas a comprar? On the screen. Where are these object pronouns? So we see them here in front of the verb vas, which is an auxiliary verb in Spanish. Here we are asking, when are you going to buy them? So vas a comprar is the verb group. Let me show this other sentence to you on the screen. We start with the question, ¿Tienes mis cuadernos? Do you have my notebooks? ¿Me los pasas, por favor? Would you pass me them, please? And again, we see here a pattern. These object pronouns, both me and los, are placed before the verb. So, David, what is the case here? What is the pattern that we see here?
Well, we're seeing that there is two. You have the object pronouns together, me and los, and they're coming before the verb. In this case, it's just a simple conjugated verb. And it doesn't really matter what tense it is. We haven't talked a lot about verb tenses, but we can also avoid talking about them too much for now. But, you might have heard of verb tenses as like the present tense, the future tense, the conditional. And none of that really matters in this case, as long as we have a single conjugated verb. So in this case, it's the present tense in the singular second person informal you. So tu pasas, just one verb by itself. And that actually requires us to put these object pronouns before the verb. Me lo pasas, por favor. So that is the pattern we're seeing. It's a single conjugated verb with the direct object and indirect object pronouns before. And we have other examples as well. So let's go ahead and display this one. We can say la verdad, sí, ella se la dijo. So that means the truth. Yes, she told him or her or them it. So if we unpack this a little bit, we'll see the same rule we were talking about before with se la. Actually, if you wanted to take the verb, or I'm sorry, the object pronoun la verdad, which is, okay, I'm sorry, I'm confusing myself. So se la, we know, is actually le la or les la, because she's telling the truth to someone or some group of people. So it would be either to him or her, le la dijo, or to them or to you all, les la dijo. But we know from last week, we can't have le la or les la, so we have to change it to se. So ella se la dijo, she told him, her, or them it, the truth, or she told it to them, her to him. But the point we want to make with this sentence is that, again, we have a simple conjugated verb, which is decir, to tell. It's in one of the two past tenses in Spanish, the preterite tense. So it means told. in this context, and we see that the pronouns, the object pronouns, both of them also come before the verb as well. So a very long-winded explanation just to say we're seeing the same pattern over and over with one conjugated verb here.
Exactly. So here we have the word se, and that's why we have many options in English, since it stands for le or les in the sentence. So in Spanish, we need also to pay attention to the context, and it will tell us if we are talking about him, her, or them. That's why we have there are many options. But let's have a look at another example where we see these object pronouns also placed before the verb. Yo siempre me ducho después de la cena. So this is a reflexive verb because I'm the subject, I'm taking a shower, and I'm representing this on me. So yo me ducho después de la cena. So what we see here is that in normal cases where we see single verbs that are conjugated, those little words that we have already learned for many weeks are placed in front of the verb. So I see here some questions. David, maybe we can answer them. So Luis Anet asks, would me pasas los, por favor, work? Well, this is what we started learning last week, and we will also explain this today in the session. Just for you to know, these pronouns, me and los, are together. They are like a couple. So they are both placed before the verb, and we will see other exceptions. And Kelly is asking, can you just say los pasas? Well, we can also say that, but we are missing here like a little part of the context. Who is the recipient? So who is getting that? I would say me los pasas. Yes, te los paso. I can give you them. Would sound also a bit more, I don't know, that would make sense both in English and in Spanish. But yes, we can just say los pasas. But then we need also additional information because someone is going to receive someone. These are the cases. Let's have a look at some other cases, David, where we have not only one verb, but two verbs. And one of them is conjugated and the other not. And I think we'll understand this better if we see an example. Tú me has dado un gran regalo. Sí, yo te lo he dado. That's what I answer. You have given me a great gift. Yes, I have given you it. So as you can see, the verb tense also agrees with the one used in Spanish. You have given. Yes, I have given. We see this also in Spanish. Has dado, he dado. I think we are going to learn more about this in one of our future sessions. Don't worry. We are here just to see how these little words, these object pronouns, are also placed in front of this verb group. So we have here has dado, and we see me in front of it. And in the second case, te, lo, in front of he dado. So both object pronouns. So this is a good example. David, maybe we can show everyone the next example that we brought. So
yeah. So let's show this example, and then I wanted to talk a little bit about a point of clarification because this can be really confusing to think of, is this one verb? Is this two verbs? So let's show this example. Las revistas aún no las has leído. The magazines, you haven't read them yet. So we are seeing the same verb form here, has leído, and we're also seeing these, well, in this case, just this one object pronoun, las, which stands for the magazines, the direct object pronoun, also coming before the verb. So if you're a little bit confused as to has leído, kind of what that means, we, like David said, we'll talk about this in a future episode, but you're seeing this verb, this auxiliary verb, us, which is conjugated for the form tu, the singular second person, informal you. And leído is what we would call a participle, just a kind of very technical grammatical term that means it's a verb that's kind of being used in this case more as an adjective, is a way to think about it. So it's not fair to say that this verb is necessarily conjugated. Leer, to read, it's just become a participle form of itself. So the only real conjugation you're doing is in the form of this verb haber, Haber. Again, we will talk about this in a future episode, but I like to think of a form like yo he leído, I have read, or yo he dado, I have given, as still just a simple sort of one conjugation. You're only conjugating one verb, really.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have this participle form to help modify the verb, but that's why you still see these object pronouns before this verb phrase, has leído, has dado, he dado, stuff like that. Because in my mind, it's easier to kind of separate them as, a simple verb like pasas, me lo pasas. Yeah, that's easy to see how it's just a simple conjugated verb. But you could also kind of group these, they're called perfect forms, like using the verb haber plus a participle. If you think of it more as that's also just one conjugation, one simple conjugation, then it's easier to understand why you would put these pronouns before.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is very confusing, and I'm sorry if I confused you. And we will definitely dive way more into this in the future. But I wanted to try to make a distinction when we talk about single conjugated verbs and how pronouns will come before those verbs. We're also pretty sort of including these participle perfect forms in there as well. Okay, so now that we got way into the weeds with that, let's move on to the next sentence. David, do you think that's a good idea? Just one more example.
Sounds great. Let's have a look at this one, which starts with the question, ¿Viste mi nuevo laptop? Did you see my new laptop? And someone says, very surprised, oh, no lo había notado. I hadn't noticed it. So again, and I think David is mentioning a very, very important aspect of learning Spanish, which are the verb tenses. We'll have more time in the future to talk about it because it's very important. We recognize that. As you can see here, we are also using había notado, which is a different tense in the past. And you will also find it easier when you realize that these tenses correspond to how we use them in English as well. So don't panic here because there is no need. Let's focus here on the verbs and how they are placed here after the pronouns. So we see some patterns. We see that a sentence needs to start with a subject. Sometimes we drop that subject. Then we have other pronouns like lo, le, se. They come first before the verb in certain situations. So I think so far we've seen only sentences where we have these object pronouns coming here before the verb. So it's important to keep that in mind. But this is, I think we have another case where we have also these object pronouns also placed in front of the verb. Let's have a look at this other case, David. Está prohibido, eso está prohibido aquí. That's prohibited here. No lo hagas. Don't do it. This is a command. So in Spanish, we'll use also, we'll say no lo hagas, and we'll place this lo also again in front of the verb. Yeah, no lo hagas, don't do it. What is to referring here to? Eso. Yeah, that's prohibited here. Don't do it. Yeah, it can be whatever. This is something that we also learned some weeks ago. Eso. I think if I remember well, eso was introduced as something that is not referring to something specific. but to something more open, which is not clear. So, David, we have this sentence. Eso está prohibido aquí. No lo hagas. And by the way, hagas is here a verb that is, well, I don't want to scare you. This is subjuntivo, but this is what we use when we are giving a command that is using the negation no. So if we say don't do it, don't make it, don't. This is how we build this sentence. But don't worry, we are going to have time to deep dive into this. But David, what about having a look at the next sentence?
So we could say something like, la tele no funciona, no la prendan, which means the TV does not work, doesn't function, so don't turn it on. So this is another example of the same pattern. We have what we would call an imperative. So it's just essentially a command, but it's in the negative form. So we're telling someone or a group of someone's not to do something. So again, we'll use the form of the verb prender, which means to turn on, but it's going to be in this subjunctive form, which is a very scary word and can be a confusing concept, but we'll talk about it later. And all you need to know is that when we're telling someone not to do something, when it's a negative command like this one, we'll use this special verb ending. So here we have, again, a case where the direct object pronoun la, which stands in for la tele or la televisión, is coming before the verb, but after the word no. So just a second example of a negative affirmative or a negative command, and you'll see the object pronoun, or maybe it's a reflexive pronoun or indirect object pronoun, whatever it is, will come before this verb. So we have one more example of this, which has actually two pronouns that come before the verb. And David, I will pass it over to you to explain this one.
Yeah. So here we have, pueden comer un trozo del pastel. You can eat a piece of cake, pero no se lo coman todo, but don't eat it all up. So here again, we have a verb like comer, and we are talking here about un trozo del pastel. This is a piece of cake. So there is an interesting situation here because in the second sentence, with the negative imperative, coman, which refers to the first verb as well, comer, we see here that lo is placed before the verb. So lo, in this case, is a piece of cake, un trozo del pastel. So easy. And in Spanish, the verb to eat up means comerse. So it's reflexive in Spanish. And that's why we are using here se. So there is no indirect object here. We are the recipients as well. So we are eating it up, basically. So don't get confused by that. Here we are having a reflexive pronoun, comerse, algo. To eat something all up. And we have here two pronouns, which is interesting. But again, as we've seen here in the past three sentences, you see that no comes first, then the indirect object pronoun, then the direct object pronoun, according to the logic that we learned the last week.
Mm-hmm.
And here the verb, and I think we have it all. So isn't it nice that we have just seen all sentences where we have these object pronouns in front of the verb? This is really, really nice. So we'd like to suggest here to say something with very shortly, which is stick with this rule and learn the exceptions that we are about to introduce. Because now we are going to start with some cases where we need to place these object pronouns after the verb. So let's start with this.
Yeah, so let's just do a quick summary because I'm getting these all mixed up in my head, but the way we structured it was like three different groups of situations, contexts in which the pronouns, whether it's reflexive pronouns, object pronouns, indirect object pronouns, these pronouns come before the verb. So we talked about simple conjugations like me los pasas, just a single verb with a simple conjugation in any tense. And then we talked about these perfect forms like yo he leído, tú has leído, tú has dado. And in those cases, pronouns also come before the verb. And then finally, the imperative case when you're telling someone not to do something. So when it's a negative command, these pronouns, reflexive object pronouns, always come before the verb. Okay, so those are three cases. And like David said, keep those in mind, and then we'll talk about the exceptions here. And that might help you kind of classify when to put them before or after the noun. But I'll stop talking. Let's just see some examples of pronouns in action.
Yeah, before we skip to the next part, David, there was a question here, prendan, about the verb prender. So Wendy is asking, encender versus prender? Yes, they are synonyms. So this is just a regional difference. I come from Colombia, and I would say prender la tele, but encender la tele is perfect. So we can also say here, la tele no funciona, no la enciendan. That's what someone maybe from Mexico would say. Because as far as I know, this verb is used in Mexico. So, and Mari is saying that her problem is with the verbs. I think this is not only your problem, but a problem for everyone learning Spanish, because this is the most difficult part in Spanish, verbs. But yeah, object pronouns are also a difficult topic, especially if you used to be fluent in French, because the position of these pronouns is a bit different in that language, but we are learning Spanish. So this is related to the translation. It's something all up. Do you have something to say, David?
I think this is one of those cases where there's just some nuance in Spanish. I guess you kind of have to learn as its own rule. I mean, there's a difference in English. For me, when I say I'm going to eat this cake, or I'm going to eat this cake all up, it's kind of like the act of eating something up is like kind of eating myself silly or eating till I'm full. It feels more like slapstick humor, like comedy in a way. Like I'm going to eat this all up with no regards for the rules or for my own well-being. In Spanish, so comer becomes a reflexive verb to kind of convey that same concept. Comerse is to eat something up. So there's not a huge difference, but someone who is a speaker or a writer might choose comerse over comer to make more of a stylistic or literary choice to convey that you're not just eating something, you're really going all in on eating that whole thing. Why it's reflexive, I don't really know, because we don't say, I mean, what I keep thinking of is like eating myself stupid or eating myself silly, but that is kind of how I view it. So I hope that helps.
I hope this is okay. I'm listing here the three cases that we just explained, because Anna is asking for it. So I'm adding them here in a comment, and we can just display them here as a summary before we go on to the next group. So we have single conjugated verbs like me los pasas, two or more verbs, like in the case when we use the presente perfecto in Spanish, like you have given me something, tú me has dado algo, and the imperative in its negative form, where we saw examples like, don't turn it on, no lo enciendas, no lo prendas. And Mari speaks French, which is a great help when learning Spanish. Yeah, so there are some basic differences, and I guess you are focusing on them to keep your Spanish always getting better. So these are the cases. You see them in the comments. I hope you find them. If not, let us know. But before that, maybe let's have a look at the new group, the fourth one, where we see that something is going on here with the object pronoun. So let's start with this. Tienes deberes, do you have course? Hazlos ahora, do them now. Here we are talking about commands, imperative, but in the positive form. So this is a real command, and um, as you can see, the verb form changes a little bit. That's why that's because we use the subjuntivo form when we express commands with negation, no? And we use a unique form to build the imperative, the positive imperative in Spanish. That sounds really, really confusing, but don't worry, it's very regular. Again, since we are not talking today here a lot about verbs and tenses and moods, this is something for the future. Let us know if you need also, if you need us to pay special attention to a specific topic, and we'll do that. But again, hazlos ahora is a sentence that contains the direct object pronoun los, and it's attached to the verb haz. Yeah. So deberes, los deberes, whereas is replaced here with the pronoun los. But maybe we can have a look at a second sentence.
Really quickly, David, before we do that, Laura asked why aslos and not haceslos. So as David was explaining, this is something we can cover a lot in the future episodes. But when forming the imperative, like the positive imperative to tell someone to do something, most verbs are actually regular in this way, and you, for example, comer, you would use the third person singular form to express the imperative for a single person, like comelo, eat it. There are some, so the temptation would be to take the verb hacer, to do or to make, and to say something like hacelos, do them. But there are certain verbs like hacer or poner, to put, decir, to say or to tell, that have specific irregular forms for the imperative. And there aren't many of them, actually, so they're pretty easy to learn. But hacer is one of these verbs. So when you're telling someone to do or make something, and it's a single person, and it's an informal, like a two, someone who you refer to as two, you say haz, H-A-Z, instead of hace.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was this little sidetrack. But let's go ahead and move to the next sentence. So we have, allí está el azúcar, dáselo a Miguel. Okay, this one is a little bit tricky to unpack, but the point that we want to make at the beginning is that you see that the object pronouns, so we have an indirect object pronoun and a direct object pronoun, come after the verb dar, which means to give. So, David, you're going to have to help me kind of talk through this one.
Yeah.
But we're talking about giving the sugar to Miguel.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have a Miguel, that is the indirect object. He's the recipient of the sugar. So he would be le, but we also have el azúcar, which is, in this case, a masculine singular noun. So that is the direct object, the thing that's being given, and that would therefore be lo. So when we have le before lo, le becomes se, as we talked about. And we know that the indirect object always comes before the direct. So the order would be se, lo. And finally, we know that, we are now teaching you that when you have a positive imperative, so a command telling someone to do something, that's when you'd put this couple of pronouns after the verb. So you end up with da, give, se, him, Miguel, lo, it, the sugar, dáselo. So what did I miss, David, in that?
Yeah, so it was great. I would like to add here something, which is again kind of optional, but it sounds more natural in Spanish. When we have an indirect object, like for example, we are giving something to someone, so that to someone in Spanish is double with the corresponding indirect object pronoun. So as we see here in the second, in the command, in the imperative form, da celo, we could also say dalo a Miguel, which would be give it to Miguel. But it sounds more natural to have this double form. So in this case, we see in the verb, if we unpack it, that da is the verb, se refers to a Miguel, which is the same, and lo refers to the sugar. So it was perfect. So I think we see here some confusion because we are not familiar with the imperative forms. Just for you to know that we use two different forms if we are giving positive commands, do something, and if we are saying don't do this, then we are going to use another form in Spanish. But please don't worry, because this is something that we will also master with practice. This is not easy. What we want you to learn today is like in which cases we could place them in a different position. So we will get back to this topic later. As we said, the forms of the positive imperative in Spanish are tend to be very, very regular, very easy to recognize. So as we see here, dáselo comes from the verb dar. So we basically drop the R at the end, and there we have the imperative form for tú. Yeah, when we are giving a command to a friend and so on. But let's have a look at another form quickly. Las llaves están sobre la mesa. The keys are on the table. Tráemelas, por favor. Bring me them, please. And as we can see here, the verb is traer, to bring. And me would mean me, really easy. And las is las llaves, them. Something that we haven't mentioned here is that we add a special accent mark in the verb traer. So when we learn how to what the forms of the imperative in Spanish are, when we learn them, we are gonna learn them without that accent mark. So basically, this is something that happens in Spanish where when the stress in the word is placed very, very far away from the end. So in order to avoid saying in Spanish traemelas, we say tráemelas, because the verb is the most important part in the sentence.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that we are going to learn, I think maybe even the next week, like how to use them. But I have no idea. We still need to decide on this. But before we do that, these are the forms, like the uses of the object pronouns when we have commands like do this, eat this, do this. Yeah. So learn this, and we need these forms, these object pronouns after the verb. Okay. So David, bring them to me. I think this is like Marie is asking, why not bring them to me?
In terms of an English translation, it's the same thing. I think it's easier to kind of see how when you say bring me them, you're putting the indirect object me in front of the direct object them, the keys. So it's easier to kind of map back to Spanish and say, oh, well, the same thing is happening in Spanish. Me comes before las, just like me comes before them. But in English, you have the choice. You could say, bring them to me or bring me them, and you're conveying the same thing. So it's just a translation choice that we made there.
Yeah. And Laura is asking, ¿por qué sobre y no en? Like if we go back here to the sentence, las llaves están sobre la mesa. Tráemelas, por favor. This is a nice catch. I think Spanish tends to be also very simple when using prepositions. The system that we pick is kind of, we are lazy sometimes when using prepositions. So basically, las llaves están en la mesa. That would be correct. That's also very colloquial. That is perfect. If we want to be more specific about where the keys are, we can also say sobre la mesa. So there is no place for question. So maybe la mesa has, I don't know, a drawer. Maybe they are inside the drawer. So if we say en la mesa, we are like very generic with that. So we don't know. They are like somewhere there on the table. Yeah. But sobre la mesa, it's a bit more specific. So this is like a little nuance. So I think we can start with this sentence. David, ella se está maquillando. Ella está maquillándose.
So if you remember a couple episodes ago, we talked about what we call the progressive form, which you can also remember as the gerund, if that's helpful. But it's these verbs that we attach the ending ando or iendo to, and it means it's kind of like the English ing. So it's to convey that we are doing something or something's in progress, it's currently happening. And here we see that exact same thing playing out. So in a sentence like ella se está maquillando, maquillarse is the reflexive verb to put makeup on oneself. So if we say se está maquillando, it's actually the same thing as saying ella está maquillándose. In this case, we have the reflexive verb se, which means oneself, himself, herself, themselves. And we have the choice in Spanish to put it before the verb phrase, está maquillando, or we can actually just attach it to the end, está maquillándose. So this is an example where there's no hard and fast rule, you have to do this or you have to put the pronoun here. You get the choice. In all the other examples we've seen so far, the first four groups, you have the first three groups where you have to put the pronoun at the beginning before the verb, or the group of pronouns before the verb. The fourth group was imperatives in the positive, the affirmative form, where you have to put the pronoun at the end of the verb. And now we're telling you there's this whole new group where you can choose either or. But I think that gives you a lot of flexibility, actually. And it makes it so it's harder to make a mistake because you really can't go wrong with either choice. You just have to remember when you have the ando or yendo form, and you're dealing with object pronouns or reflexive pronouns, you got to put them somewhere, but the choice is up to you. So, David, what else would you add to that?
Yeah, I have this question. ¿Qué haces con el coche? What are you doing with the car? And then I can say, lo estoy reparando or estoy reparándolo. Both are correct. As you said, here we have the flexibility to choose where we want to place the object pronoun. But just as I note, reparando, as you can see in the first sentence, has no accent, and reparándolo has an accent. Again, there is a rule behind that. There is a reason. It's very simple, and we are going to learn more about this later. So let's have a look at another sentence where this is also facultative. Y la cena, dinner, tú estás preparándonosla, ¿no? You are preparing it for us, ¿no? No, se la estoy preparando. No, no se la estoy preparando. That's how I would say. No, I'm not preparing it for you. So again, we have here the verb preparar and nos. We are recipients there, so someone is cooking for us. What is this person cooking? La cena. That's why we have la at the end. And someone replies, no, no se la estoy preparando. Here we are using se because we are changing the indirect object. Yeah, someone is saying, no, I'm not cooking for you. Yeah, so that's why we use se. Yeah, instead of les, which would be in this case referring to a ustedes. You would be the recipients. So when addressing many people. So I think this is kind of easy if we see a gerund form. So if we remember it well, these are the verbs that end in ando, yendo in Spanish. And we have object pronouns. We have the possibility to place them right after the verb, attached to them, or before both verbs, if we have several verbs.
So you could ask the question, tú nos la estás preparando, no? And that would be the same thing. We just didn't write it out here because you have the choice. And the answer could also be, no estoy preparándosela. I'm not preparing it for y'all or preparing y'all the dinner. So you do have the choice. We arbitrarily chose two ways to convey the same question and answer. But keep in mind, you can move these couples like nos la, that couple of pronouns, or se la, that couple of pronouns before or after the verb phrase.
Yeah. So I think Megan is asking, ¿estoy maquillándome? That's correct. Yeah, that's perfect. I would add an accent on yándome, so right before the object pronouns. But other than that, it's perfect. Estoy maquillándome. That's perfect.
And you could also, Megan, say me estoy maquillando, because of the rule we're explaining now. You can move that reflexive pronoun wherever you want to, well, as long as it's right before the verb phrase or right after the verb phrase. Me estoy maquillando, estoy maquillándome.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and we have a last group. This is going to be short, I think, because it's the same case as for gerund forms, where we have infinitive form, so the base form of a verb. So let's have a look at this question. ¿Tenemos los ingredientes para la sopa? Do we have the ingredients for the soup? No. ¿Los podemos comprar ya? No, we can buy them. But we can also say, no, podemos comprarlos ya. Again, the same situation where we have two choices. We can either put them in front, like before the verbs, podemos comprar, as we see in the first answer, or we can also attach it to the verb, to the second verb, comprar, which is no, podemos comprarlos ya. So in this case, in both groups, the previous one and in this one, we have a group of verbs. It's mostly two verbs, but we can also see more. They stay together because they are also a couple in Spanish. So verbs stay together. We don't break them. And object pronouns do the same as well. So we have like little couples in Spanish, and it's better not to put something between them because we don't want to make them sad. So verbs come together, and that's why in some cases we can put them the object pronouns before the verbs or after the verbs. But I think it's getting clearer the more examples we see. So David, we have this sentence.
So I am looking at the sentence, esa historia me gusta, deberías leérmela, which you could also convey as me la, and that should be deberías. You could say debes as well, but for the sake of consistency, we just forgot to change this one. So you could say debes leérmela, you should read it to me. And that's the same. Deberías leérmela is an alternative way of saying the same thing. You should read it to me, you ought to read it to me. But you can also move that pronoun combination to the beginning of the verb phrase and say me la debes or me la deberías leer. So then that would mean I like that story, you should read it to me. So here again we see this infinitive form of the verb leer, as we did with comprar in the sentence before. And when you have the infinitive form, you're most likely going to have another verb that's conjugated, usually what we would call a modal verb. So we see in this sentence, deber means ought to, should. In the sentence before, poder means can. So you have verbs like can, should, must, going to, want to. And these are the verbs that get conjugated depending on who the subject is. And then you're usually followed by an infinitive form. So leer in this case. You should is conjugated deberías or debes, and then leer is in the infinitive form. So in these cases, you have the choice as well, as we were explaining, sort of with like the ando yendo forms to move the pronouns before or after the verb phrase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct. So maybe we can see the last sentence, which reminds us of the sentence we started this session with. So we had a nuestros hijos les voy a comprar un coche, and the answer was, oh, ¿cuándo se lo vas a comprar? And here again, we could also even ask, ¿cuándo vas a comprárselo? I'm going to buy our kids a car. Oh, when are you going to buy them it? So we just wanted to bring this sentence back because this is also a case where we can place them before the verb or after the verbs. The verbs. Because we have comprar, which is an infinitive form. This is the main verb in the sentence. And yeah, we have this very nice option. So to sum up, we saw in the first part 3 different groups of verbs where we need to place the object pronouns before the verbs. And then we saw a group, which is the group of the imperative forms, positive imperative forms, where we need to place them after the verb, like hazlos, do them, yeah, cómpralo, buy it. And the last groups are yeah, the ones for those verbs where we can add the object pronouns before or after the verbs. So yeah, I think since this topic is getting very, very long, I think we can just say, David, we'll skip the test that we prepared for you today, and maybe people will have time in the next days to learn a little bit about it and maybe to collect some questions that they might have, and we can even start with the test next week.
That sounds good to me. I certainly want to be respectful of everyone's time. And then if there's any outstanding questions that are burning and you have to have them answered right now, we might have time for 1 or 2 more really quickly, but we'll go ahead and let those come in and give our closing up sort of spiel as we always do. Just to say thank you so much for joining us. Again, this is always so lovely to spend time with our amazing viewers. David, always a pleasure to give presentations with you as well. If you are hungry for more content and you can't quite wait till next week, feel free to keep commenting below and we'll try to come through and answer your questions, but also feel free to reach out to us on social media. We're on Twitter and TikTok and Facebook and Instagram at Babel USA. You can also find us on Quora, the question and answer website, in our space, Everything Language. And then also Babel Magazine is a great place to interact with a lot of language learning content as well. So we will post all of the links below to these various places. And then, of course, if you have ideas for future episodes, we've already gotten some in the comments for this episode as well. But we'd love to hear from you. So please keep submitting suggestions. We got a lot of good stuff that we can talk about coming up. So we're very excited for that.
I see. Before I also say goodbye, I see some confusion also regarding of the verb of the word ya in Spanish, which means already. That's true. In some contexts, it also means ahora, now. Yeah, but sure, we can also talk a little bit more about it. Don't get confused by that. I think someone asks here. I thought yeah means already. Yeah, yeah. Is the ya necessary? Like in the sentence, we can also get rid of it. We don't need it. Los podemos comprar ya. We can also say los podemos comprar ahora. And yeah, I didn't want to let you hear with the confusion. We are always happy here to see you because I think our wish is that you learn the most out of it. I know that this is a bit confusing. This is a huge topic, and we will also get more time for practice next Tuesday, same time, same channel, and I'm already looking forward to it.
So also one thing that I'll do is I think it was Dana who asked, because she didn't have time to write and take notes. We mentioned the first 3 groups of cases in which you put the pronouns before the verb. So I think it would also be helpful to list the cases that we talked about in the 4th, 5th, and 6th groups where you either have to put the pronouns after the verb or have a choice before or after. So I'm going to go ahead and copy those in right now if you need, if you missed that or you need extra notes. But anyways, it has been so great to spend time with all you wonderful people. Again, hope to see you next week at the same time. That's 1 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. And that is all I have to say. So David, if you have anything else.
It was really nice to be here. Thank you very much for your attention. And yeah, I hope to see you next Tuesday.
Adiós a todos y todas.